Vanessa, I'm joined by Jake Zivin, who you may have heard calling some of the MLS's best games this season. Jake, let's just break it down real simple. What are the big changes that we're expecting to see with this new schedule change?
Yeah, first of all, just a massive change as far as when the games will be. The season will now run from essentially the late summer, right, until the late spring, early summer. And the offseason will be in the summer instead of the winter. That aligns MLS with most of the other leagues in the world, particularly all the big major European leagues. And it's a change from how the league has been running for 30 years. It's seismic. It's one of the biggest changes in the history of this league. It's one that was well thought out, that I think a lot of people thought was coming. But it is a big one nonetheless. It won't happen next year. It will happen starting in 2027. And then there's many reasons for it. The big one, Jeb, is the transfer market. It will allow MLS to bring in better players and to get basically the best out of the players that leave MLS to go to European clubs.
And that's a great point. I think that's been a hang-up for a lot of clubs, especially as we try to bring in greater talent, bringing in, more star power designated players. We've brought in Thomas Mueller and Hung Sung Min with LAFC. This will now align with that schedule. Let's talk about some of the logic behind it. So I will tell you, as someone who's grown up as an MLS fan, pretty much my entire life, going to San Jose Earthquake games at Buckshaw Stadium, Chris Wondolowski era. It's so great to see where the league has come now. One of the biggest concerns I've had about this is how much it lines up with all the other traditional American sports. I will tell you, as someone who likes the NFL and college football and NBA and really watches all kinds of sports, I liked that the MLS was a summer sport because I got to really sink my teeth into it. What do you think do you think that there will be an overlap? Do you think this will benefit, detract? Like, what do you think this will mean now that it is in competition with some of the more established American sports, for lack of a better term?
First of all, your guy, Chris Wondolowski, going into the National Soccer Hall of Fame today. That was announced.
Yes, sir.
So
yes, sir.
That's for the soccer nerds, but congratulations there.
Yes, congratulations, Chris.
Yeah, to Chris, right, of course. It is a trade-off. And I think when you talk about the competitiveness with the other leagues, yes, the summer, you were just going up against baseball, and in some cities, I live in Portland, Oregon, and called Portland Timbers games for a long time. The Timbers and the Thorns, soccer was the only game in town in the summer. But now is the perfect time to consider. We're in the playoffs right now. Charlotte FC, of course, we're just eliminated by New York City.
Yeah, we're in the playoffs.
We're in the playoffs. We are in the playoffs collectively.
Yep.
Charlotte was in the playoffs, right? Right now, it's an international break. There are no games this weekend. So we just had this thrilling round one of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And now you've got to take a week off, and then we'll resume the following weekend, the weekend of the 22nd, with the conference semifinals, then the conference finals the next week, and then MLS Cup the next week. It's not an ideal time for a break,
right,
to say the least. And more importantly, we're going up against the NFL and college football every weekend now for the most important games of the season. Last year's MLS Cup we called in Los Angeles. I think it was December 7th, same weekend as it'll be this year on the calendar. And we turn around in our booth, and one of the TVs is on whatever ABC or CBS or ESPN, and it's the SEC National Championship game.
Yep.
Or sorry, SEC Championship game going on at the same time as our MLS Cup. That's not an ideal competitor, right? If you're MLS. So what this will do is it will mean the playoffs will be away from the NFL and college football. So while, yes, the bulk of the season, you have that, it's really going to be 6 to 8 weeks where you had your time, as you said, where you can focus on MLS and you're not distracted by the Panthers or distracted by, SEC football or ACC football. But right now you are, and it's the most important time of the season. So I think this change will really elevate the playoffs. It will mean that in May, you're going to have the NBA, you're going to have Stanley Cup, but we all know this is the United States of America. American football is the behemoth, right? And so I think this will be a better schedule for the playoffs without the international break, without as much competition, an ability to really have momentum at the best time of year. Also, the weather will be great, right, during the playoffs, which isn't a bad thing, when it comes to actually attending those games. There have been some cold MLS Cups, which are great for the stories and great for the lore of it. but there's a reason why all the bowl games are in the South, right? Like let's play the big games in nice weather.
Absolutely, and I love that take. I mean, I do think May for MLS Cup will be. I will tell you, I remember watching Red Bulls Galaxy and it was Texas, someone else on. I kept channel flipping, and it was so hard to pick. Yeah. Obviously, in May, I think I speak for a lot of people when there really will be less of an overlap. So I do like that take a lot. Another thing that I just found super interesting was this winter break. We have something similar with the Carolina Ascent. They take a big break for our women's pro team here. How will that work, do you what does that look like in practice?
Yeah, look, the details as far as the exact dates were announced today. The general framework was it's going to be mid-December to early February. There will not be league games. So how that time is filled, will have to be determined. If it's just a straight break, if Leagues Cup moves to January, I mean, that's pure speculation for me, but Leagues Cup moving to January in southern markets, I don't know, something like that.
Brilliant.
Of course, could be a possibility, right? Mm-hmm. But it'll be a winter break. It's not uncommon. Germany has a winter break, not as long, but the Bundesliga takes 3 weeks off, I think, in the winter when it gets cold in Germany. It's practical. It makes sense. Take the holidays off, take New Year's off, figure out, how to deal with January, whether it's, again, giving everybody a real break, kind of a second off season and let everybody go refresh, or whether they figure out a way to fill that with games, we'll see. But there will not be regular season games at that time, and that makes sense. Look, there's a lot of northern markets in the league, and you have to schedule around potential weather with this, and it's one of the complications of the calendar switch. But obviously, it's not something that's insurmountable. And I think you'll be seeing the regular season games that are scheduled for, let's say, like the beginning of December, and then when the league comes back from the break in early February, mid-February, you're going to have the northern teams playing on the road at the teams in more mild climates for that time. You can schedule that. You can schedule it out. In a way, it's better because right now, there's the playoffs going on, and like I said, there was a freezing game in Kansas City. There was an MLS Cup in Toronto in December, right? So that you can't schedule that.
Right.
You can schedule regular season games to have Montreal go play at Orlando on December 13th. You know what I mean? If Montreal is playing in MLS, is hosting MLS Cup on December 6th, you can't schedule around that, and you got to deal with the weather there. So it does kind of make these harsh weather, cold weather dates a little bit easier because you can schedule them and put the games where you want them to be.
Absolutely, man. I think I speak for a lot of fans when I say I am excited and intrigued by these schedule changes. As I said before, I'm someone who has grown up loving watching it in the summer, but it's not going away all of summer. I mean, I really do like the opportunity for it to be a fall sport. And to your point, I think there will be some really interesting matchups right before and after the break, letting teams recalibrate, reset, and lining up with the European transfer window will hopefully be able to help set the clubs up to bring in more world-class talent, which we've been doing a really good job of.
And that's the big one. I mean, that is the main reason for this move, is aligning with the transfer window. It's something that no other American sport has to deal with, right? I mean, the player movement in every other major league in America is within the league or through a draft system. Yeah, in baseball, you have players coming from Japan. There's the rare NBA player that comes kind of straight from the EuroLeague, but they go into the draft anyway.
Right.
It's very different. Soccer is a global marketplace, and Charlotte's a perfect example. They sold Patrick Agyemang during the summer window. That is a difficult decision for a team to make, and Charlotte made that decision. They ended up having Idan Toklamati, who was fantastic. They had a replacement for him, so it didn't hurt them, but it has hurt other teams. And it's still, you never want to trade a guy who's a key player, a starter on your team, a fan favorite, transfer, right? If to use an American parlance, trade. You never want to you never want to have a player leave your team in the middle of a season. It's difficult. It's a hard decision to make. But MLS teams now in the current setup are forced with making that difficult decision every summer when they've got 10 games to go maybe in their season and they think they can win a championship, but a team in Europe really likes a player on that MLS team, on Derby County, really likes Patrick Agyemang. The player wants to go because it's a step in his career. It's a step up in salary. You want to do right by the player, but you also want to keep your team's ability to contend and win a championship together. Those decisions are going to be far more infrequent now because the off seasons are going to line up, and the majority of the European teams look to turn over their roster in their off season. MLS is the same, and now you won't have this disconnect. So for players who are leaving, it'll happen at a better time. You will get kind of the maximum value out of the players also, to be honest. And then for players coming in, you're going to have a more open market. MLS teams now, in their off season, basically have to buy the scrap heaps from European teams because it's in the middle of a European season.
Right.
So if a player's doing well, that European club isn't going to want to let that player come to MLS. So you're really getting players who are kind of what we would say is out of favor from their clubs. And if you want to get a player who's now kind of more available in the offseason, that's now happening in the summer, and the team signs him, and they've got 10 games to try to come in and make an impact at the end of the year. That's really hard to do. You're almost acquiring a player in July for them to hopefully give you something the rest of the season, and then next year they're going to be a full player for you. And again, that's not ideal. So those problems just go away with this calendar change. I think that's going to be the biggest impact. It's the biggest reason. It will increase the quality on the field. It will improve the business off the field as far as player movement goes, and that is no doubt the top kind of motivation behind this move.
An interesting, I think, kind of Charlotte-specific angle is Charlotte FC is beginning to gain a budding reputation of a club that develops talent. Obviously you had Ajamong, obviously Malanda leaving as well. You have Idan Toklamadi, who came up not necessarily out of nowhere, but he was developed here, will likely leave if everything comes to pass for a handsome fee
sure.
as well. Yeah. How do you think this move will help the league's reputation as a league that is, had a retirement league reputation forever? Now we're developing young talent. You had Almiron, who tore it up at Newcastle for several seasons there before making his return here. How do you think being on that same schedule will help improve the league's reputation as a league where top clubs in Europe can buy top talent?
Yeah, it's already, to your point, getting there, right? I mean, it's way beyond retirement league. No way.
Gone. Right.
Nobody who's serious about the game thinks that, right? I mean, you'll have some trolls online who will say that, but nobody who works for a European club thinks that. They already know there's a lot of talent in MLS. It has become much more of a selling league. It's also a buying league. There's no doubt about it, but much more of a selling league, which is a good thing. This will help just because it's gonna eliminate a lot of that friction, right? You're going to have teams more willing to sell their players in the offseason than they are now. There are teams who turn down moves all the time in the summer because they don't want to part from a really good player. Malanda's a great example. That worked out perfectly. In that he said, I want to stay and I want to finish out this season. I'm going to do the deal, come back on loan essentially, and then I'll head to England in the offseason, whenever our season comes to the end. But that's rare. It's rare for that to happen. Most times in that case, the player's gone. And Charlotte's losing their striker and their super talented, one of the best center backs in the league, in the middle of a season where they feel like they're a contender. And again, it didn't happen, but it could have in most situations for other teams, players like that around the league. It does happen. Now that doesn't. And so it just means Charlotte will be much more likely to say, yes, we're gonna listen to you when you come asking for Adilson Malanda, when you come asking for Idan Toklamadi. We're gonna listen to you, and we're gonna come to an agreement, and we're gonna make that deal, and it's gonna be better for everybody involved. So I just think it'll eliminate some of the friction of those moves, and then there'll be a higher volume of them, and then, right, of course, MLS will continue its perception as a league that where you can find really young talent, really good young talent that can then go make the next step to Europe. And honestly, it also brings MLS a step closer to being on the same level as a lot of these European leagues, because they can now be this kind of equal player in the transfer market. And now I think you'll start to see more players coming over in their prime when they're looking for a new club in their offseason, and they're considering maybe going to Spain, maybe going to Italy, maybe a club from Germany, maybe a club from the United States. It's a lot easier to kind of wrap your head around, okay, I'm going to go there and I'm going to start the season, as opposed to, wait, I'm going to go in the middle of the season. There's 10 games left. Then I'm going to have an off season. I just think both ways, it's going to elevate MLS on kind of both sides of that transfer market, so to speak, worldwide.
Well, I think it goes without saying, you have sold me on why this has been such a great movie. And I was on the fence coming into this. I'll be transparent,
Okay.
journalist transparency, but I am more excited now than I ever have been. On a similar subject, MLS about to get, based on reports I'm seeing, a little easier to watch for some folks who have Apple TV. Break down what that kind of looks like.
That's official as well. So that was also announced today.
I didn't
that
want
is
to
done. So no, it kind of got lost a little bit, I think, in the
right, big day
in the news. It was a big day. Well, honestly, one of the most consequential days in the history of Major League Soccer.
Mm-hmm.
That is not an exaggeration. Yes. So next year, MLS Season Pass, which is what Major League Soccer has been on Apple TV, that is going away. And what MLS Season Pass is it was kind of its own tier within Apple TV. Apple TV used to be known as Apple TV Plus. It was just rebranded last month to being Apple TV. So it's just Apple's streaming service where you watch Ted Lasso and Severance. For the past 3 years, you needed to have an MLS Season Pass subscription to watch MLS. And if you already had an Apple TV Plus subscription, now known as Apple TV, you could get an MLS Season Pass subscription at a discounted rate, but you still had to get it.
Right.
You could also just sign up for MLS Season Pass on your own, and you couldn't watch Ted Lasso or Severance, but you could watch MLS Season Pass. That is all going away next year, and now it's just totally simplified. So if you subscribe to Apple TV, you will be able to watch every MLS game. You'll also be able to watch Formula One in the United States. So instead of these kind of different tiers and maybe a little more complicated of, wait, what do I need to watch this? It's gonna be open to everybody. So everybody that can watch MLS can also watch Ted Lasso and watch Severance. And look, I know I'm gonna sound like a company man here. I think Apple TV has the best quality of shows of any of the streaming services. They don't have the volume of like a Netflix, obviously, but everything on Apple TV is great. And man, I hope that this will bring MLS people into Apple TV so they can now watch some of these shows. And I hope that the people that are already at Apple TV that have the subscription to watch, again, the Severance, the Ted Lassos, that they can now come to MLS and watch MLS. The people that sign up for Apple TV so they can watch Formula One, now that they come to MLS. There's a great deal of a bundle with Apple TV and Peacock that was just announced last month that will allow you now to get Formula One, MLS, the Premier League. There's NBA on Peacock. It's just, I think, I think it's going to be a game changer for us heading into next year. I don't know if you can hear in the background. My dog is very excited about it. He's barking right now because he's fired up because he'll be able to watch it easier next year.
Dog barking here too just a moment ago.
There you go. So yeah, no, it's going to be really helpful and I think easier for everybody to watch next year and just bring more people in the tent, right? So just a big day for us from a broadcasting standpoint on Apple TV. Yeah, for everybody to be able to watch globally, and a big day for the league announcing the calendar change. Man, it's a lot to keep up with today, no doubt about it. But November 13th, it's going to go down as a big day in MLS
Huge
history.
day, the biggest in a long time. And I'll tell you, just so that people who are watching here from a non, I have no affiliation with Apple TV MLS, but I, as someone who's grown up watching the league from a very, very different time, the production that MLS and you guys put together, the games feel bigger. That MLS 360 is as good, if not better, than Red Zone, in my opinion, for the NFL. I mean, I think it's just they do a heck of a job, and Apple TV obviously is, to your point, just great quality shows and movies across the board. I am very excited for more people. There was all this discourse about whether or not the Apple move was good for the league, and you heard all these things, all this kind of stuff. And I get it, I understand, but I hope that people who watch now can see that this isn't just putting the league behind a paywall. It's up-leveling the quality of the production from top to bottom. The games feel bigger, the league feels bigger. So I am really, really, really excited for people to be able to experience this, experiencing you guys on the call and everything in between. It should be great. And now they can do it in a more conventional season, and in a couple of years. So it really will be very, very cool.
I appreciate that, Jeb. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and it's great to hear that others agree. And we're all really excited to continue this MLS on what'll be MLS on Apple TV now, and to continue to kind of raise the level of our production and of our broadcast as the league raises its level, right? And with this calendar change, it's a really exciting time with the World Cup coming in the summer. I mean, it's a really, really exciting time for soccer in this country, and specifically for Major League Soccer in this country.
It certainly is. Jake Sivan, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you giving us so much time on this Thursday night. We'll be looking forward to hearing you all throughout the league and seeing a lot more of your face. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Of course.